right, Melissa. Well, you are the the lost child that has come home. Um,
Come back. I
that's
don't know
right.
that anybody was holding their breath.
Well, girl, no, people have missed you a lot. If patients always ask how you been. So we'll give you a second. How's everything been?
It's been good. It's been a nice, change of scenery and getting to do kind of all the things that I enjoy as far as lifestyle medicine. So it's been really nice to, be able to focus on that. So,
Yeah, yeah. Well, disregard my dog whimpering. She wants to come in. But yeah, but no, I mean, obviously this is what we're here for, right? Trying to help people change their
mhm,
lifestyle the best that we can. And we know it's an uphill battle. And so,
mhm.
as we were talking, because obviously thank God we still keep in contact with one another, we realize all our patients are kind of experiencing the same thing, especially with the new year coming.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I think what brought this conversation up, and we're going to talk about like healthy habits for the new year, which is kind of what we always talk about in a way, no matter what time of year. But I know we've been sending like these pictures of empty gyms.
Hmm.
We've been seeing these pictures and reels because we don't TikTok.
That's right. That was the shortest band, by the way, I've ever seen in my life. They're already back
Exactly.
on.
When it went down, I was like, well, I guess everybody's going to come join us on Instagram.
Yeah, that's right.
But anyway, just seeing like comments and things like that about how empty gyms are this year. And, they kind of contribute that to people are using other methods for their New Year's resolutions. And if
Mhm.
weight loss is in their New Year's resolution, they're usually or a lot of people at least are kind of seeking out those GLP-1s and things like that that kind of takes people away from the gym. For the people that rely on the medication, of course, there's people that don't rely solely on that, but we're just here to kind of reset and make sure people are paying attention to lifestyle too.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think, with again, there's a lot more tools now for weight loss than we had before. And so a
Exactly.
lot of people are very interested in all these new tools, and there's new medicines coming down the pipeline. And all looks very promising, but what we've seen before, and it's kind of like the same story that we see, like if we don't learn to change things, we all just kind of go back to what we were before, right? And so we've had patients that have used these tools for years, and unfortunately, they're kind of right back to what they were before. And there's this kind of light bulb that kind of glows like, I have one patient, I guess I shouldn't have relied so much on these medicines.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're here today. Like, hey, it's great that you have a tool, but we still need to do some things, especially if you're taking these medicines. We have to do something in addition to make sure we don't lose muscle mass and lose bone mass and things like that.
And just people seeking out the medication as one of their primary tools. I've seen a lot of like people asking, online, where did you get yours? And, different things like that, just like really seeking out the medication. Which, if that is done safely and by a prescriber and whatever, use it as a tool, but don't skip these other things. So there was like this huge surge of those questions that I noticed online around January 1, that first
Right.
week. But nobody was asking like, what gym do you go to? Or
Yeah, yeah. What equipment did you
anybody
use to
have some
build
good
the?
nutrition pointers?
That's
Yeah.
right. That's so
So,
true. Yeah, well, let's start here because Melissa, this is one reason we brought you on as a lifestyle medicine expert is that okay, sure, there are some things that we have to learn and have to do. And so I thought of making it easy as like maybe five things that you as a lifestyle expert is telling people that we have to learn these things. Otherwise, we'll just keep on this circus that never ends. So I'll give you the
mhm.
floor. Maybe we'll start with where your top one, your top one is.
I've got a list, and I've listened to some of your episodes lately with Michael. The series and everything is so great. He is so good about like preparing and bringing forward the research and the
Mhm.
outlines, and I've got my little like notebook.
No, nice.
I've like scribbled my thoughts down, but that's the preparation we're going with today.
That's
So.
hey, girl, that's right. Hey, that's how we used to do it. We just whatever. Yeah, that's how we go.
Talk.
That's right.
Okay, well, yes. So, number one probably goes without saying, but exercise, is one of those things that we can't neglect. And especially if we're doing anything to like restrict our calorie intake and things like that, medications especially are going to reduce our calorie intake, putting you into a deficit so you can lose weight. But if we neglect our exercise, we can lose some muscle mass and things like that. So we just have to be careful not to neglect that. But also with or without medication, like we just need to exercise, right? So I always say, of course, guidelines are going to say 150 minutes of cardiovascular exercise a week. You know, that can be divided up however you want. A also is very important to incorporate into your routine. If that sounds too much and you're nowhere near that, we just build it in where we can. So there's like three ways to incorporate more physical activity into your day, even if you can't like commit to like formal exercise sessions.
Mhm.
Okay. So one is paying attention to your steps. If nothing else, if you have got most people have a smartwatch, or you can grab a $10 old-fashioned pedometer. It's just a good way to like pay attention to how much we're truly sedentary.
Right,
If
right.
you look on there at the end of the day and you've only done like 1,500 steps, maybe get up and move around. It just kind of gives you an extra cue to make you, pay attention and maybe move around more throughout your day, even if you're not setting aside 30 minutes to exercise.
Right.
Okay, so that's one. And then two, as far as the physical activity, tips, activity snacks is a good way to
Hmm.
look at it.
Okay.
So building in like little snippets of physical activity throughout your day. So you might get up from your desk every hour and, walk up and down the hall, or maybe just incorporate, some squats while you're watching TV or something like that. You
Yeah.
can do a set here and there, and by the end of the day, you've gotten three sets in. That's better than nothing.
Mhm.
Okay, so anything like that can start building it into your day. Habit stacking is another one. So, things that you're already doing, add another habit there. So, if you're talking on the phone, maybe get up and kind of pace while you're doing that. Or if you have a desk where you can stand to type, things like that. So, little things that you would be doing anyway, go ahead and build that into your day. Number two,
Yeah.
nutrition.
Yes, yes. Well, no, I think, Melissa, real quick, as we're talking about exercise, there were studies that showed that more frequent small movement was better than a block, right? Like a
Yes.
walk for 30 minutes and sit for 8 hours versus like
Hmm.
every hour or every 30 minutes do 2 minutes. And so you're exactly right. We don't have to set the bar of like, if I can't go to the gym for an hour, I'm not going to do anything. But finding ways to incorporate it, because I know at the end of the day, right, we want these habits to stick. If it's too hard or it takes too much willpower to start in the beginning, it's never going to stick. And so, right, small, frequent, I like that. Activity snacks. I'm going to start telling people like,
Yes.
just do some push-ups or do some squats when you're right. What you
Yeah, and just build it in, stack it with other activities that you're doing anyway. You might, do some countertop push-ups while you're waiting for the water to boil, while you're cooking dinner. If you're an audiobook listener
Mhm.
or a podcast listener, instead of like sitting and watching us on video, on this podcast, just do the audio and walk while
Yeah.
while you're listening. So there's lots of things that we do anyway that we can, you know, add some physical activity in there. So,
Yeah. Awesome. Very good. All right. Number two, nutrition.
so on this one, you know, I think whenever somebody tries to make a nutrition change, they often like focus on what all do I need to take away? What do I need to avoid? Whatever. And to some extent, yeah, there's certain things that we don't need to have an excess, but I like to really focus more on what we need to add to our diet rather than take away. So for example, you could focus on like your number of fruits and vegetables for the day, recommended servings, at least five of some combination of fruits and vegetables a day. So if you get to your dinner and you're having maybe some lasagna or something like that, and you've only had like one apple all day, it's like, how can I incorporate maybe some more veggies, fruit, something into this meal? And maybe you just throw a bag of frozen veggies into the microwave and add that as a side, or a handful of spring mix and make a quick side salad. But incorporating more of what we need along with the things that we would probably already be eating. And that kind of cuts down on that portions of the other things too. So we use like the plate method a lot. At least half of our plate can be those fruits and veggies. So that kind of scales down that serving of lasagna.
Right.
And half of our plate is our, steamed veggies or salad. And, our lasagna is more of like a smaller portion and more like an actual serving size rather than the whole plate. So it
Right.
kind of scales that down a little bit. Um, Also, making sure that you're, paying attention to the foods that we need, like fiber and, to some extent, maybe even protein, things like that, without getting too much in the weeds of having to count every little thing, making sure that you have a source of each of those things at any given meal. So if you're having a meal and it's got two starches there, like potatoes and a bread, but you don't have a protein, make sure you get a protein source in there. Or we have a protein and a roll, but we don't have any like fibrous veggies. Go ahead and make sure that you're adding some of that to your plate. So just kind of focusing on some of those things kind of shift things around a little bit. It's not like we're making you count every little thing, but make sure you
Right.
get a little bit of what you need with each meal.
Yeah, yeah. And there are, again, I think what this helps with, first of all, we realize one common thread, Melissa. People with bad metabolic health don't eat vegetables. It's every single one
Yeah,
of them.
no.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like, okay, so if you're looking at your plate and you don't have anything on there, just see how you can add that on. And it doesn't have to be anything complicated, and it can be, if you have like three vegetables you like, keep those on hand, and really use those. But then also like maybe sometimes push yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit. If it's
Right.
if it's something you haven't tried in a long time, maybe you try it again and prepare it a little bit differently, and it's actually pretty good. There's
Yeah.
there's some things that it takes a few times to try, and then you realize you actually like more than you really thought you did.
Mhm. Yeah, and like I said, with your approach here of just increasing whole foods instead of focusing on like the micro counting and stuff like that, just increasing whole foods, it will deal with those cravings. A lot of people that hit 3 o'clock, they got a craving, they want something crunchy or snacky. If they ate more plants and proteins, they actually don't have as much cravings until like dinner time.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And making sure that you are getting like appropriate, nutrition throughout your day. So like a lot of times we see, beginning of the year, people go on these like really restrictive diets. And so like by dinner time, they've only had maybe like 500 calories for their day and they're starving.
Right.
So they're snacking while they're cooking dinner, they're eating a big dinner. They probably have something after dinner just because our body like knows that it's been starved all day and is gonna, really kick in those cravings to make up for it. So being too restrictive is not beneficial either. So making sure that you are, fueling your body at appropriate intervals throughout the day.
Right. Good. Okay. So we got two now.
Two now. Number three is sleep. We couldn't
Yes.
couldn't do this without talking about
Oh,
sleep.
not at all.
And it's really non-negotiable. And I know everybody's schedule is different. What has been so surprising to me is how many people Like, don't go to bed until like 2 or 3 a.m. Um, and I just can't comprehend it because I would not be able to function.
No way. Yeah.
But I do also understand that people work on different schedules. If you have more of like an afternoon type evening shift, maybe you do truly sleep from 2 a.m. to, I don't know, 10 to get your 8 hours of sleep. If that's working for you and your work schedule and everything else, as long as you're getting those 8 hours in and you're functioning well in the hours that you need to function, that's okay. But also don't waste those hours that you are awake. It's kind of like if you get home at 9 p.m., but then you scroll on your phone or watch Netflix from 10 until 2 a.m. Um, and say that you don't have any, time to exercise,
Right.
it's like, well, do we need to build that in somewhere? Do we need to shift our sleeping schedule a little bit where we can do that before we go to work?
Mhm.
Or do we go after work, just like the people who get off at 5 p.m. and go to the gym at 6?
Yeah.
I guess there's a few people that go to the gym after their afternoon shift,
Mhm.
or evening shift. It sounds hard when you don't live on that schedule, but when we're talking with people and like working with their schedule, it's like we do have the same 24 hours.
Right.
And of course, that looks a little bit different for everybody and their responsibilities and everything else. So for some people, it's a lot harder to fit in 30 minutes than others.
Right.
But if our sleep schedule is, not optimized,
Mhm.
we're not as likely to build in those healthy habits at other parts of the day.
Yeah, yeah. The longer I think about it and the more I so Melissa, are you still getting up early to work out? Are you still
I am. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't have to be here quite as early, but I still am like a 5 a.m., and over the years that has changed off and on, some years I could only do afternoons because I had kids waking up in the middle of the night and things like that. So, everybody is going to go through different phases of life, and I totally understand and respect that.
Mhm.
But, you know, building it in where you can in
Yeah.
whatever stage of your life is important.
Yeah, yeah. The more I, think about because now I'm a 5 a.m. person. We're the same. We wake up early, we get things done.
Yeah.
To me, it's okay. So this is kind of a sign note. Maybe we'll talk about this later, but it's easier to wake up in the morning, have time to yourself, get yourself right, and then encounter the day versus just waking up to chaos, right? If you're getting up when the kids are getting up, it's chaotic, everything is frazzled. For me, that's just not good for my mental health or my. But one thing I also realized is sleep recharges, there's a lot of things sleep does, but one thing it recharges for this episode, it recharges willpower, right? And so if you're exhausted of making decisions if you're not sleeping well and they're making decisions all day long, by the time dinner comes, you have zero willpower for yourself and you have zero willpower to fight the kids on what to eat, right? So next thing you know, everybody just eat whatever. Um, and so you realize that if you are rested, you have more ability to control your exercise schedule, more ability to control your food cravings, more ability to control. I mean, if you want to enhance learn a new language, if you're exhausted, that's not happening. And then I think the second thing we mentioned too, Melissa, I mean, I understand everybody needs a revenge hour, right? It's been a long day. You want to catch up. You don't need 4 hours of a revenge hour, right? 30 minutes, 50 minutes, but not like 4 hours.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we see that a lot, a lot of, big chunks of revenge time in the middle of the night, where we could either be getting sleep so we can be more productive the next day, or using some of that time, to incorporate some healthy things. If it is like packing your lunch for the next day or things like that that need to get done. Um, don't don't ignore those things, just to get that revenge time. But I get it. Have some revenge time. But yeah, do we need 4 hours?
That's right.
Okay, are we ready for number four?
Yes.
Okay. So stress reducing habits. We a lot of times we don't pay attention to our stress until it has already overwhelmed us. So if you're in the process of like making healthy lifestyle changes for the new year, and you don't have some stress relieving habits built into your day, it's a good time to start incorporating that. Just because the more or the further we let stress go, the harder it is to kind of like recover from it. So if we can build in some, some time for stress relief every day or most days, and that can look different for everybody too. It might be like, a 90-second meditation on an app, or it might be that walk around the neighborhood. There's lots of different ways that relieve stress. It could be a hobby, painting,
Mhm.
reading, things like that, um, again, if we don't build it into our day as like a way to decompress a little bit, if we wait until we're to the point of like overwhelm, it's a lot harder to recover.
Yeah, yeah. And I think with stress, really, obviously, I think the more we see stress kind of affects everything, right? So it affects your sleep and it affects your exercise, it affects motivation, it affects a lot of things. And one thing I would tell people to always pay attention to their stress is a lot of it can be self-sabotage too. Like for example, waking up to chaos, right? So you wake up to chaos, you know that, okay, if I got up earlier and had some time to myself, it wouldn't be so chaotic. But we also want a revenge hour at night, so we push it. So you can tell like there are things that sometimes with your stress, you almost have to re-look at your habits and
Hmm.
realize that maybe if we change some habits, it will actually help with the stress a lot. But exactly, it's just one of the things like in this, for the purpose of this episode, we just want people to know it's important. You have to work on
Hmm.
it. Don't just kind of let it be and then explode and be struggling all the time.
Yeah, yeah, and you're not going to be as motivated to do the other things if we're dealing with just like super high stress environment. And there are stressors that we can, manage or control, and then there's stressors that we can't, There's certain stressors in life that we can't get rid of, but how we cope with them makes a big difference in our outcomes and the way we function in the rest of our life.
For sure. Awesome. Well,
Yep.
Melissa, we'll roll to our final knockout tip.
Yes, one more. Yeah. So number five is community. So, and that could be just like having an accountability partner. It could be, like some of our patients use us as their accountability partner in a way. If they schedule a visit in a month, it's so they can, work on certain goals until that time, but find somebody in your corner, even if it's just like telling your spouse or your best friend like what you're doing. Sometimes just putting it out there, gives you the extra motivation to stay accountable. But even, bonus points if they want to do it with you, it makes it a lot easier to like have a walking buddy or somebody that you go to an exercise class with or somebody that you can go to lunch with and, both of you order, something better on the menu than the burger and fries or things
Right.
like that. Somebody who's making similar choices to you is always good to have in your corner.
Yeah, and I think this is one that other countries or cultures who are more like community centered, that's the one reason they live so long is because they have community, right? So we talk about things like stress and exercise habits and nutrition habits and even sleep habits. If you have a walking partner that wants to get up at 6 a.m., it will affect your sleep, right? So Oh, so all that being said, Melissa, these are fantastic tips. I'm glad you are back on. I know we have patients to see, but any final thoughts that you have?
I don't think so. I think whatever your habits are that you're working on for the new year, just make sure not to neglect these five things, So if um, whatever you're working on, even if, and we kind of focus this on weight loss, but even if weight loss is not like the primary goal, just building these habits into your life just helps you be more resilient to life in general. You know, you don't have to have a New Year's resolution to lose weight to start incorporating some of these habits into your day to day.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Melissa, thank you so much for your time. I'm sure our podcast people are glad you're back on. We'll have to do this again.
Yeah, yeah, it's good to come back on for a minute and say hi.
Yeah,
So, hope everybody's doing well.
for sure. Well, thanks, Melissa.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.